Right. What's going on?
Hey, Sabby, how are you?
I'm good, good. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you and chat with you. It's been a while. I think the last time I saw you was February of last year, the Rage Against the War Machine rally in DC.
Yep. Yep.
So,
So
yeah.
we want to hear about what's happening in New Hampshire. So I want to show everyone. I saw you had a picture here with Dean Phillips. So you got a chance to talk to him. And you also got a picture here with Vivek Ramaswamy. So I want to hear about what were these conversations like? Number one, how do things look for Dean Phillips? I saw a story that said in New Hampshire he might do surprisingly well.
Yeah. So that was taken at Dean's campaign headquarters launch in Manchester, New Hampshire, where most campaigns will have their headquarters. And he had a good crowd, really enthusiastic crowd. People were fired up. I did notice that a couple of his top guys were former Yang guys, Conrad Taylor and what's the other guy's name? Zach Grumman. Is that his name?
Oh, yeah.
So I had a feeling Yang was going to be showing up to New Hampshire for Phillips. And of course he did the last few days. So that wasn't a surprise. So there's like a little bit of a Yang gang vibe. And then but no, I mean, I found Dean to be like a very friendly and affable kind of guy. I mean, if you didn't tell people or you didn't know he's one of the richest guys in Congress, you wouldn't know that. He doesn't put on this wealthy, multi-millionaire child of a liquor dynasty from Minnesota. A lot of people don't realize that. That's what he comes from. And his grandmother is the Dear Abby. She's the original Dear Abby in the Dear Abby letters.
What?
Like that advice column. Well, it's interesting. It's an adopted family. So Dean Phillips, his biological father died in 1969 when Dean was only 6 months old over in Vietnam. He was like a week after the moon landing. Phillips' biological father was killed over there in action. So his mother was a single mother for a while, and then she married into the Phillips family, which is part of a liquor, alcohol dynasty. And you can thank that group for Belvedere vodka. They created Belvedere vodka, which is pretty good vodka. Yeah, so people don't know this about him. I obviously did a lot of homework because Dean, that guy came here basically since October. That guy has lived here in New Hampshire. He's been crisscrossing the state. He's been going everywhere. His signs are everywhere. He had kind of a goofy, funny, folksy Midwestern charm like van that was decked out with all of his stuff. And they drove that around the state. And, it was just like, I'm not Joe Biden. Even though I have a voting record that I vote with Biden 95% of the time, I'm not Joe Biden. I'm not a corpse. I'm a young guy. I'm energetic. I can relate to you. And then he definitely made a leftward tilt to appeal to younger college kids who are back now from holiday break, because they can vote here in New Hampshire. So I saw him talking about Medicare for all. I saw him talking about student loan forgiveness. And then he's a Jewish member of Congress, so he definitely pulled on that when talking about Israel and Palestine, saying he wants to see an end to the conflict there. He didn't really offer much by way of like policy concretes, but just like overall, it's like it was an emotional thing. It was like, look, Biden ditched the state. He's not even on the ballot. The sitting president has to do a write-in campaign here, which is absolutely pathetic. Biden hasn't been to the state in probably over 2 years. And I'm here. I'm a sitting member of Congress. I'm going to actually come here. I'm going to campaign. I'm going to meet with the people. I'm going to run a real campaign. And he has. He's run a real campaign. He was all over. And so that was at his headquarters where I met him. And then I ran into him today randomly at the polls in Windham, New Hampshire, where I was getting signatures for Bobby Kennedy to be on the ballot as an independent. But Phillips just happened to be stopping by there to say hi to supporters and check the place out. So he recognized me. That's how ridiculous it is here in New Hampshire. He pointed at me and he recognized me because when I saw him again, I was wearing an ABBA shirt. And he's like, oh, yeah, you had the ABBA shirt on. And, I appreciate what you're doing. And I've talked to Bobby Kennedy and we don't agree on everything, but I think it's important to have him on the ballot. So, Dean has run a great campaign, and I found him to be a nice guy. But I think you're right. And I said this to him today. I said, a lot of my friends and even like some boomer age people had no idea who the hell you were. until you came here and dropped in and they made a campaign of this, and they're going to vote for him. They told me they're planning on voting for him. So I do think
he does have a base.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, there's people turning up to his events here. Now, is that going to translate to like a surprise victory over Biden? I don't really know. It's kind of hard to gauge because then you have Marianne Williamson, and she's been running a real campaign up here for many months, multiple visits to the state, has a real staff. She has state reps who endorsed her campaign. One of them is a personal friend of mine, a great state rep from Peterborough here, where I'm from. Jonah Wheeler was one of her top guys in the state. And, she's a mayor. I got to give Marianne a lot of credit. She's a dogged campaigner. She did my podcast a couple days ago, and, she's here listening to the voters, and she shares the animus towards the DNC and the rigging and the screwing, and they're basically just like F you voters. We don't give a shit. Sitting president and our DNC racket, which is still a lot of Obama people. We don't give a damn about you. South Carolina is going to go first. And, here in New Hampshire, if you get 15% or higher, you get awarded delegates that will be seated at the national convention that are supposed to be in Chicago this summer. But they've said that's not going to happen. So even if Phillips or Williamson gets to 15% and then gets beyond that, they're not going to have any delegates seated at the national convention.
That's interesting. I'm curious in reference to Joe Biden. Have you ran into anyone that is actively supporting Joe Biden in New Hampshire?
The people that support him are just the party stiffs. A lot of boomers, a lot of Ukraine flag people. Like if Ukraine flag was a human being, it's the write-in Biden people. This is like old guard New Hampshire Democratic Party. Like her name's Kathy Sullivan. She used to be chair of the Democratic Party up here. She was a big Clinton butt licker. Just standard vote blue no matter who kind of people. And at the polls, I mean, honestly sad. I mean, it's MAGA country up here. So like their people just drown out the write-in Biden people. So it's just feeble old boomer establishment. Annie Custers and Chris Pappas are our members of Congress up here. Jean Shaheen. They're all on board. They're all part of it. They know it's elderly abuse. I mean, at this point, I feel bad for Biden. He's a corpse. It's elderly abuse. I can't believe they're doing this to him and having him run again. It's embarrassing for our country. It's embarrassing all around. But to answer your question, like real everyday New Hampshire people, Granite State people who I hang out with, which could go from anywhere from pretty liberal Bernie Sanders type people all the way over to free staters and libertarians. I don't really have anyone who's like, yeah, Eric, Biden. I'm all about Biden. I'm psyched about this. I'm psyched about this write-in snow job. And yeah, I know they screwed us over and they rewarded South Carolina because that's what rescued Brandon's campaign in 2020. He came in 5th up here in New Hampshire. It was abysmal. Mm-hmm. It was awful. He did an event right here on my street in downtown Peterborough at the town hall, and he couldn't even get 80 people to show up. I could have walked down and saw Biden, and I was like, I'm not even interested in going. So it's crazy. Another thing was interesting. So Vivek was there, and I think a lot of people may be wondering because Vivek did obviously suspend his campaign. Was he there basically to help advocate for Trump? Yeah, he was. Vivek was there rallying the MAGA faithful. So he showed up so probably like a half hour after Dean Phillips came in, said hi, and then left. I heard that, Vivek will be here in 5 minutes. So he rolled up with an entourage, a couple of SUVs. You can see one of them in the back there. And he just came, and right when everyone saw him, all the Trump people and the MAGA faithful saw him, they started chanting USA, USA. And Vivek just, he ate it up, and he's really settling into the role as high-profile surrogate, and he's auditioning for vice president or a cabinet spot with Trump. Mm-hmm. I mean, certainly now going forward, even if he's not awarded something in the cabinet or something official, he's going to be in that MAGA media ecosystem as a rock star now. He solidified his footing there. But it's interesting. One of the guys who was Vivek's top advisor and guy here in the state is a state rep named Fred Doucette, who was Trump's co-chair of his campaign in 16 and 20 here. And he bailed on Trump for this primary and went with Vivek. So that was interesting. So I could see how it'd be pretty easy and seamless now that he's out of the race and he's a surrogate for Trump and making the case for MAGA, that he was just kind of brought right into the fold because Trump was like, you know why I like Ramaswamy? Because Ramaswamy likes me. Okay, that's why I like him. I didn't like him when he was running against me, Sabby, but now that he's not running, I like him. It's a lot easier to like him. Okay.
That's a really good impersonation.
Yeah, well, I do it professionally to plug my services, jackmantrump.com, if you want to hire a Trump impersonator. I will.
My God.
I will show up, Sabby, to weddings, funerals, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, quinces, but they got to be legal quinces. They got to be done legally, okay? It's got to be legal. I'm not going to go to AOC's quince. I'll say, Alex, go get me my Diet Coke, okay? Because she's the bartender from Brooklyn. She is, okay? She is.
Oh my God. Well, I want to show you this clip here from Case Study QB. This was about Dean Phillips and Marianne, where they were saying that they believe that Marianne could actually beat him. I want you to hear this.
Okay,
here.
You spent some time with Dean Phillips, who is on the ballot here this week. What does he articulate as his strategy, and how does he define success?
Well, he said to me that if he got in the 20% range, that would be tremendous, was his word. You look at the fact that he is the only sort of elected Democrat who's running. Marianne Williamson is also here in the state campaigning. I think he needs to finish ahead of her, to be sure. And a lot of people here I've been talking to say she might actually beat him. That would be a big setback. But he said he's in this race until the convention. He plans to go to Chicago because he wants to argue, look, the data points will only continue to favor me, that Joe Biden can't win. I was talking, though, to some other local Democrats, and they say too much of his message, and I saw it at a couple of events, is about process. It's about what the DNC did. It's not about what his vision is for the country. And so they're criticizing him, saying, listen, maybe he would have more of a chance if he was running about issues and not just about a policy debate process.
They want a contrast. There are some things Democrats may be upset about. Okay, you spent some time with Dean Phillips, who is...
Okay. What do you think about that, Eric? What they're saying here, that they said Marianne could actually beat Dean Phillips in New Hampshire, and also this thing that he wants to go to Chicago, but there isn't going to be a real convention.
Yeah, it's going to be like a glorified nursing home with Brandon just eating ice cream, staring at the camera with Jill saying, "You like ice cream? You like ice cream, huh? Who are you? Oh, I'm not wearing pants. Come on, man. Where's Hunter?" Yeah, well, look, Phillips has the war chest. The guy can keep going. He's got, I've read, I think he's worth personally between $70 and $80 million. And he's got dude's got money. He's got that alcohol family money. And I think, from that, he launched some businesses that he's done well with. So certainly he has the resources to do it. But you're right. What would he be showing up to in Chicago? What would that look like? I mean, hell, I remember in 2012, I worked for Ron Paul up here. We came in second place, and he had all these delegates and showed up to that convention down in Florida, where Clint Eastwood was yelling at the empty chair like an old senile guy. And Ron Paul got treated like absolute dirt at that convention, like he didn't even exist. So even if Phillips is to show up from other states where he gets some delegates or has some wind in his sails, we know how the DNC is going to act. They're going to give him the cold shoulder. They're not going to give him the time of day. They're going to ignore him. This is an anointment. This is about Biden and Kamala Harris and 4 more years of Build Back Better and stability and beating Putin and just all the bullshit that they talk about. So that they're arguing that Marianne Williamson could possibly do better than Dean Phillips here in New Hampshire. Is that what they were saying?
That's what they're saying.
Have
you met a lot of Marianne supporters there?
Yeah, I know a few. Her events, I have to say they're attended, but just anecdotally, crowd size, I saw bigger crowds at Dean Phillips events.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was interesting because I didn't know what to expect when I went to his opening. I'm like, who's going to go to this? Because we did, I've been with Bobby since June, and when we were still a Democrat, we had some of that energy. We had people showing up to our events who were dissatisfied Democrats who were like, yeah, we're going to use this opportunity to stick it to Biden, and we could have an upset victory here in the primary. Someone coming here and campaigning hard in New Hampshire and running. So Phillips certainly made that case and did that and really put some resources into the state and had a great STEM. His staff were all great. They're really professional. Their events were really well run and attended, and they did Q&A and there was access to them. No one big-leagued anybody. Like Dean was very accessible and very available for New Hampshire voters, and so was Marianne. But like I said, it's hard to predict who could win or who's going to do better. Like, I would hate to see the write-in thing get more votes. I think that would be awful, and that would just suck. That would just, because all Biden had, he had Ro Khanna drop in a few times. He had Bernie drop in and speak at St. Anselm at the Institute of Politics, and then some other kind of lower level surrogates. But beyond that, there was no campaign. There was nothing. The Biden offered nothing to the people of New Hampshire by way of, earning support and earning a vote for a write-in campaign. So I'd like to see Dean. I'd like to see Dean or Marianne pull something off here today and do better than expected. But if I had to bet money on it, I would say Phillips is poised to do the best out of the lot.
And here's a video of you with Dean Phillips here.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, I got a podcast here. I just want a quick minute to ask you 60 seconds. Oh, sure, yeah. Okay. My buddy's going to film. Hey. We rolling? Mm-hmm. All right, we're here with Congressman Dean Phillips. It's Eric Jackman from Jackman Radio. Congressman, thanks for being here in Peterborough.
Good to be in Peterborough with Eric.
So, quick lightning round.
Yeah.
Why should New Hampshire voters not write in Joe Biden and vote for you?
Well, only if New Hampshire voters want change, If you're part of the exhausted majority and you're sick and tired of the both parties and the past, and two men, frankly, are going to be in their 80s, you want it for a new generation, and you want to be hopeful and optimistic again, vote for Dean. Change is coming.
Absolutely. Who's going to win the Stanley Cup this year?
Not the Minnesota Wild. I don't even think the Bruins are either.
He won't even pander to us Bruins fans. Dean, if you get the nomination, if it's you against Trump and Biden, what do you? I'm not you against Trump. What do you want Trump to come up with a nickname for you?
Oh, Dynamic Dean.
You heard it here first. Dynamic Dean right here. Dynamic Dean from Minnesota.
Yeah.
And,
by the way, I cannot wait. Cannot wait to be on the debate stage with him.
Dynamic Dean, you heard it from him.
The other question is, what nickname should I come up with for him? Not you, Eric, but
for Trump. Yeah. You got one right now, or you want to think about that?
No, I'm going to have to think about it.
Well, I'm going to tweet at you. I want to get that from you. And lastly, today is RFK Jr.'s 70th birthday.
Yes.
You want to say happy birthday to Bobby?
Yes, happy birthday, Bobby. I respect you as a competitor, I respect your family and your legacy, and I think we should all be working together to make sure that Trump doesn't return to the White House.
Congressman, thank you.
Wow. So I guess I'm absolutely floored. I did not realize that this guy was actually gaining as much momentum as he is. Like, I honestly, when he announced he was running, I was like, who? And I was like, why is this guy jumping in the race? So I'm actually surprised, but it does sound like he does have somewhat of a base there, at least in New Hampshire.
Yeah, I mean, I saw people from all across age ranges and political ideologies come out to hear him because we were very slighted by Brandon and company and the DNC. And New Hampshire people, we got a little bit of arrogance. I'll be honest about it. We got that New Hampshire primary chip on our shoulder. Like, you better come here and you better woo us. You better kiss our ass. You better come to our stores. You better bring your campaigns and spend money here in our state, because this is how things have always been. We've done it for 100 years. And as Trump says, Iowa, they pick corn, and New Hampshire picks president, Sabby. They do, okay? That's the truth. Everybody knows it. Putin knows it. Xi knows it. Rocket Man knows it. It's so true, okay? But yeah, it was interesting. So I said to Dean today, I said, man, you might do better than expected. I think coming out of here, you could be a story. This could be a story. You could have some wind in your sails. And it's something that the media will have to start covering if it snowballs or progresses beyond just like an asterisk performance here in our state. So polls close. Most polls closed at 7 and some at 8 here in New Hampshire. So probably in the next, it's 8:20 now. So yeah, probably the next half hour, 40 minutes, hour, we're going to start seeing some results trickle in.
What do you think about Ro Khanna was questioned recently about having done something for working class people? I want you to hear what he says here, what Bernie Sanders basically said could be a danger for Joe Biden.
So you were here on President Biden's campaign team behalf. They're doing a write-in campaign. We're going to come spend some time with you later this afternoon. Sounds like it's well organized.
There is so much enthusiasm here for the president. Anyone who says that the president doesn't have enthusiasm needs to come to New Hampshire. Progressives, moderates, lines outside houses.
Well, we're going to come.
I would take it that's probably false.
That is the biggest heaping pile, as Jesse Ventura would say, Sabby, that's the biggest pile of cow dung I've ever seen in my life. That is unequivocally the largest steaming, stinking pile of shit I've ever seen. I don't buy a word of that from Roe.
Oh my God, they're really trying it.
Wow, no, that is.
Spend some time with you and bring it back over the next couple of days to our shows. But your old friend, Senator Bernie Sanders, would definitely like him to be making that argument stronger. Do you agree with that? And what do you think he means by that? What would Senator Sanders like to see that he's not seeing?
I think what Senator Sanders would say is look at FDR in 1936. He got a lot done, but he said that people still were struggling. And Senator Sanders would say we've got to become a working class party. Let's talk about a second term where President Biden will really fight to make sure we get the living wage, where he's going to fight to make sure we get child care at $10 a day, fight for more affordable housing. And he should be honest with folks. Look, he's trying to overturn 40 years of neoliberalism that gutted the middle class. He's not going to do that in 2 or 4 years, probably won't even do it in 8 years, but he's trying to reverse this absolute free market ideology and center the working class. And I think President Biden is going to make a great economic argument.
So in the
Yeah. So the thing that's really funny about that is that that's Ro Khanna basically saying out loud that the Democratic Party is not a working class party.
Well, also reversing 40 years of neoliberal policies, that Joe Biden created, that he was a part of in the Senate when he was still a gangster and had his facilities.
Yes, that's
Right?
incredibly true. I mean, it I want to pull up this article here, just at least the headline. Let me see if I can find it. It was about independence. I want you to see this in Eric T, I should say, because there's a lot of Erics that come on the show.
Eric, it's a great. We got Eric Trump, Sabby. It's a great name. My son Eric. He's a very, very smart guy. He's a smart guy. I call Trump's sons Uday and Kusei.
There's just so many Erics. Eric, producer Eric, can you pull up the Nikki Haley part, because I want to move on to Nikki Haley as well. Yeah. But this is what I saw here in reference to independent voter. It says New Hampshire primary sees notable turnout of unaffiliated voters, moderates, preliminary exit polls. Are there a lot of independents coming out to the primary?
So I pulled these numbers before I came on here, and at last check in New Hampshire, here's how our registration breaks down: 303,000 Democrats, 298,000 Republicans, unaffiliated 399,000. So that's the largest block that I'm unaffiliated of voters here in New Hampshire. Now, coming out, the argument was being made that a lot of them are going to come out for Haley, and even a lot of Democrats were going to come out, to damage Trump. They wanted to vote for Haley. And I did hear some people say this, around that they were going to do that. And the mystique of the independent and the undeclared, you always hear about it every 4 years, and it's going to have an impact. It's going to be big. And it usually kind of ends up being a little bit of a dud. It doesn't end up having a huge impact on the results of what happens.
Okay, so it did come through that Nikki Haley. So this was announced earlier today. Nikki Haley clinches the first win in New Hampshire at Dixville Notch. I'm going to play this really quick.
Make sure I get this right for you, Trace. They're going to put it on this whiteboard, as you see. And stand by, Trace. Here we go. Hey, yep. Tension building here, Trace, as the number comes in, and I believe a 6 is being drawn. Yep, Trace, it is official. Wow. All 6 of the votes that were cast being for Nikki Haley. I see for Donald Trump they've put a 0, indication that the former president got none of the votes up here in Dixville Notch, and I guess that makes it about as official as it could possibly get. Wow. As I asked, these folks are now taking pictures, but you're seeing it live. The first results, Trace, of the 2024 New Hampshire presidential primary. Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley right now able to claim a victory in this very small part of New Hampshire. Make sure I get this right.
So let me ask you a question, Eric. I'm not familiar with Dixville. Where is that located in New Hampshire? And are you surprised that Nikki Haley won that particular area?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, it's a kind of a fun little tradition part of our primary. They're like the very first. They open up their polling at I think some ungodly hour at like 5. It might even be 4 or 5 in the morning, and it's just it's a small. It might not even be an actual town, like an incorporated little hamlet or village, where they go out and they vote. It's like a small little room. I've never been up there personally, but friends of mine have gone up to cover it when I was in college, and then they vote. And then they have the cameras there, and they all. It's like a cheesy Hallmark movie. It's basically what Dixville notches. It's just like a cheese. Just like I just picture like bottles of maple syrup and old people like, oh, the Clarks, they're voting for Haley this time, and we like that Indian guy. We like that Indian fella. Or when it was like Ben Carson or Herman Cain, we like the black guy.
Yeah. Yep. Oh my God. Well, I want to show you something. Some switches were happening earlier this morning as well, too. Like some of the people that said they had planned on voting for Nikki Haley, apparently when they arrived, they decided to change their mind. And Eric T, when you get a chance, can you just Google to check the latest poll results to see what's been released? But this was pretty interesting. People changing their mind last minute.
Want to shut off the border.
Yeah, I changed my vote this morning. I went, instead of voting for Haley, I voted for Donald Trump this morning.
You changed your vote this morning?
Yes,
why?
We did. I think the primary's over. I think that, Mr. Trump's going to be our next candidate.
Want to shut off.
So let me ask you a question, Eric. The switcheroo, people who were set on voting for Nikki Haley, but like this gentleman, when they got there, they decided to vote for Donald Trump. How much of that do you think was happening? And then also, I think some people want to know this question. Where did the former Ron DeSantis supporters go, do you think?
That's awesome. That's interesting because a lot of the people, the Haley people, were like, so dug in to vote for. I went to an event that she was at. I sent you a tweet in our chat if you want to show that after, where they're like, we're done with Trump. He's immature. It's chaos that follows him. We can do better than him. Haley's the adult in the room, And then I said it in my Trump voice. I said, Haley and her millions of dollars from Boeing. We call her little baby Boeing. Okay. And she was able to buy the nice McMansion down there with the money from Boeing. Okay. It's very sad. It's very disgusting. She's total deep state, even though I put her as UN secretary. But that's interesting. I didn't hear about a lot of people that were going to bail on Haley to go for Trump. But I certainly did hear among the MAGA faithful and former Vivek people and former Meatball Ron people that this thing is over. Iowa was a mandate, and New Hampshire is just going to further solidify that mandate that Donald Trump's the guy. He's going to be the nominee. No one's going to beat him. Haley could have some kind of showing here where she does 30 or 40%, but that doesn't matter. She's losing badly in her home state where she was governor of South Carolina to the Megalodon Trump.
Well, she was my former governor when I lived in South Carolina. I remember when she ran for governor, and it was a whole big thing. A lot of stuff came out about her. I was surprised she won. But this is your tweet you have here. You said, what message do you have for the survivors of the USS Liberty? And if you became president, what would you do for them? Nikki responded, which one was that? And you said the ship Israel attacked in 1967. Nikki says, we have to always take care of our veterans and put their interests first. What was your impression of her, Eric? Do you feel that she came across as authentic to you?
She was deer in headlights. She had no idea what the hell I was talking about with the Liberty because my opening was, I'm like, okay, what am I going to ask her? Obviously I don't want to get kicked out of this thing. There were some Never Nikki bros who I think were like Rand Paul acolytes who showed up to one of her events, but they had it advertised on their shirt that they were hashtag Never Nikki. So you're not even going to get into the event if you do that. You won't even get to ask your question. Right. This is my brother and I have been. This is our 7th New Hampshire primary, so we know how this game is. This game is played. That's me right there. That I'm giving her the business about the U.S. Liberty there in that picture. Yeah,
because I think some people may not realize that. Like, you can't show up to these events with like a candidate T-shirt on or anything that.
You can, but if you're there to protest or if you're there to ask a real question, like I did about the Liberty, I guarantee you, no one in this whole campaign cycle has asked her about the U.S. Liberty. So to me, she's polished. She's very well spoken. She's got her stump memorized. She's got that thing tight. And she can really, really put on the like empathy, like I care, I'm invested in this. So she brought up veterans. We're going to take care of our veterans and honor them and respect them. And it's like, you know, neocon Haley here, you never saw a war that you didn't love and want to profit from and send other people's kids to die for. So I said, okay, she's doing that. That's an opening for me during the photo line. I'm going to ask her about the U.S. Liberty. Because the reason the Liberty, I mean, I've known about the Liberty for years, but the reason it was on my radar recently is my state rep, Jonah Wheeler, who was with Marianne Williamson. He met with some of the survivors of the U.S. Liberty here in New Hampshire recently. One of our members of the House brought some of them to New Hampshire. I don't know exactly what it was for, but he sent me a picture of it. I'm like, man, that's awesome. It's great to see that their story is still getting out there. And some people give a shit about what happened, you know, in 1967. But I asked Haley about it, and she had no idea what I was talking about, like deer in headlights. And she's like, well, you know, we just got to take care of all our veterans. They're getting attacked by terrorists all over the world all the time. I'm like, yeah, but like, what specifically would you do? You know, would you issue an apology? You know, would you own up to what happened? Would you support? Because you said you support veterans, but it's only those veterans. It's not those veterans. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was interesting. But yeah, I mean, the word ghoul is thrown out there to describe Nikki Haley. I think that's a pretty apt. She's you know, she's like Dick Cheney and Ralph Lauren. And like you said, when she was up and coming there in South Carolina, some pretty salacious stories came out there that resurfaced about her being in hotel rooms, Sabby, with people who were not her husband because Mr. Haley was 8,000 miles away in Afghanistan for the empire. Well, she was back in South Carolina doing a binga banga boonga in hotel rooms in the back of Escalade. Very sad. I never cheated on any of my wives, Sabby, by the way, okay? I am the most rich and faithful person ever, okay? I am. But yeah, she's just a polished politician, man, and she in my view, she's an empty suit.
Well, we have live results coming in now. I think Eric has this poster right now. We'll bring in New Hampshire primary results. 17 New Hampshire delegates won by multiple candidates. So far, it says, I'm sure we still have quite a bit to go, but so far it shows that Donald Trump is winning by 52.8%. He's gained 11 delegates. Nikki Haley has, it just went down. Or did it go up? Nikki Haley has 46.3%. She's gained 6 delegates, and this is 24% reporting. Who wins New Hampshire, Eric, based on what you've seen?
Oh, well, the world king, the emir, the sultan, Donald Trump, will be winning a resounding victory tonight on the Republican side. I think when I texted you earlier, my prediction was Trump 55 points, Haley 40, and then other 5%. So I think you know, along those lines, it looks like that's kind of what's coming in. What was Haley at? 36? I don't know if you're able to go back to that.
46, but the thing is, it says 46.3. It says 24% reporting. However, Boston, this is Boston. I think this is, Boston.com actually just posted Donald Trump and President Joe Biden have won the New Hampshire primaries.
Wow, the write-in campaign won. Yeah,
24% in.
I know. I mean, Iowa was even worse. They called that thing like in 18 minutes. The caucus. Remember how quick they called it for Trump?
Yeah, but this Eric says AP called it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my brother just texted me too and said Biden won with his write-in campaign, and the God Emperor Donald Trump won for the Republicans, which is no shock.
Well, they're showing the Republican. Let me see if we can find the Democrat, or maybe not showing it. Maybe I can go to this one. I was trying to see what the other candidates actually.
Yeah, the number. Yeah, I mean, you know, I usually wait till the next morning or the next couple of days, and then I'm a nerd. I go through all the counties, you know, because I know people in all the counties and all the towns, and I like to see how they did. But man, that's a bummer if Biden won that thing by a silly write-in. That's pathetic. That's pathetic.
This is crazy. This is wild and crazy. They've already called it for Donald Trump. CNN says 19% reported, 54.2%. Nikki Haley 44.3%. Is Haley done after New Hampshire?
That's a great question. And like I said, because South Carolina is next, and she's down by a lot to Trump in South Carolina. So how bad would you look if you lost the first two contests and Trump won them pretty handily, and then you're going to lose in your home state? What case do you have now to make to the GOP primary electorate that I need to stay in this thing? And even though I lost terribly in the first two, and now in my home, I can't even win my home state. I think there's going to, depending on what the actual numbers end up being tonight, I think there will be some soul searching, and we could see her get. A lot of people were surprised that Meatball Ron dipped out when he did. I wasn't. I had a feeling after I looked on his website and saw they're starting to cancel events, because some of his guys were calling me or texting me looking for places here in Peterborough, which is not exactly like a firebrand right-wing enclave that Meatball would be like welcome to. They were looking to do an event here. Mm-hmm. I was texting with a couple places, and they didn't want anything to do with it. So I saw the writing on the wall with that. But a lot of people were surprised that he ducked out and then bent the knee. He was a meatball that ran away from home. He ran away from the MAGA home, and then now he's coming back with his meatball head held low with his high heels, and begging for forgiveness of his king to bring him back into the MAGA kingdom.
Here are more results here, guys. So this is the New York Times. Says Donald Trump 53%, Nikki Haley 46.1%. People still voted for Ron DeSantis, 464 votes, 0.6%. Who is voting for Chris Christie and Mike Pence?
Freaking Pence. Oh my God. Pence was just sad. I went to one of his early events last year in a town called Keene. They got a couple hundred people. You been to Keene?
Yeah, I saw Stomp in Keene.
Hey, oh, that's right. I remember seeing you. You posted something at the Colonial Theater.
Yep.
That's right. Pence was just like, oh my God, that guy's just a jar of mayonnaise. He looks like he's wearing a skin mask. He was a dead empty suit. And I just cannot understand it for the life of me why he was running. Okay, what's Phillips at? 20%.
This is the Democrat primary, guys, for New Hampshire. 33% of the votes in. It says Joe Biden 392 votes, but then it says unprocessed write-ins 23,719. Dean Phillips 6,757 votes. And then are they showing all of them?
Oh, here we go.
Okay, Marianne got 1,487. I don't even know these other people except for Vernon Supreme.
How many is what's the percentage of reporting for the Democrats?
This is 33%.
Oh, geez. Okay. Wow. Well,
really, I'm supposed to believe all these people wrote in Joe Biden?
I mean, wow. they're like I said, they're the boomers. There's still a lot of boomers up here. They own all the houses, they own everything, and they're cringe, and they watch CNN, and they watch that angry little boy Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, and then that psychopath Joe Scarborough with Mika. And I think, Sabby, some people should talk to Joe Scarborough about the dead intern in his office. They should ask him about it. They really should. They really should.
Oh, man, this is a mess. So I guess the question will be going from here. Does it even make sense for Marianne to continue on? And also with Dean, I don't know if it will make sense for him to continue on either, but it's just, this is very interesting, but they're already calling it for Joe Biden.
It's incredibly disheartening, and obviously I'm going to look tomorrow what the final numbers are when they're more firm. But I was hoping someone was going to crack 30% at least. But if they can get above, and it looks like Dean has there with 20%, you get beyond the 15. Of course, you get the delegates, but like we said, the DNC with their chicanery will not be seating any of those delegates. So if anything, Phillips can take that and go on whatever media will have him and just point out, look how awful this is. This is absolutely terrible. This is not indicative of a thriving republic and representative democracy by any stretch. So it's.
Do you think? Would you say that new? Oh, let me click on delegate tracker really quick. Okay, yeah. Trump has 31 delegates. Nikki has 14. Ron DeSantis 9. And of course, Vivek 3, but they all dropped out. I guess this is just going to be very telling. I mean, does this already make the case that it's just going to be Joe Biden and Donald Trump all over again. I would have thought in New Hampshire that other candidates would have had a stronger chance just because Joe Biden was not even on the ballot. But
I know it's insane. It's insane. Even someone could come in here and spend all this time that Marion and Dean Phillips did and still finish that way and have a write-in campaign come out on top is it's horrifying. It's a slap in the face to our process, to actually these people having to come down with us commoners and roll around in the mud with us and hear our concerns, because it's just moving more and more towards tarmac politics where you're rolling in the jet, you wave, you do a mega rally, then you leave, you go to the next city. So that's the argument I make for keeping New Hampshire first and keeping our primary, something that is important and has the prestige and the influence that it has had historically, because we're crazy up here with our politics. We're very engaged. We're always paying attention. And I go and see everybody. I mean, since the 04 primary, I probably met like over 80% of the people running for president on Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, like even like a goofy vanity candidate like Vermin Supreme or something like that. You go and see them. It's part of the culture. You go get a picture with them. You do a little video. And then you get to a point like I did with Dean Phillips, where they're seeing you at other things and they remember your first name. So it's cool. If you're into politics, it's fun. But this certainly has really put a damper on the whole thing. And I have to give the Republicans credit. I mean, they at least participated in it, and they were very, very supportive and would not budge an inch on New Hampshire not staying first. Whereas like Ray Buckley, the leader of the New Hampshire Democrats, and them, they hemmed and hawed a little bit, but they ultimately didn't do anything. They're like, Joe Biden will be our nominee.
Cubba Joy said, what happened to Jill and Cornell and RFK? So they're not present in the primary. They won't appear until the general election. So it just is what it is. One more question for you in reference to that, Eric. What is the deal with, maybe you can tell us, because the rest of us just don't really know. What is the deal with RFK Jr. and the Israel?
Yeah, it's a tough one. And look, I'm sticking with Bobby. And believe me, I'm sad about it. I've said this to Bobby. I don't agree with his position on Israel and Palestine. I've hung out with Roger Waters. I've been to all kinds of great events that like BDS and solidarity with Palestine. You showed a Ryan Dawson tweet earlier. Ryan is a friend of mine. I do a podcast. I haven't done it in a while, but I have a podcast with him and Reed Coverdale called The Four Horsemen, where we get together. And Ryan's over in Korea now, and we would do a live stream, and we call it The Four Horsemen because our guests would be like the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. And we did some pretty wild episodes. So certainly when all that happened, it really started with Roger Waters, like early in the campaign. Bobby had like a great tweet about Roger Waters supporting him, getting his back. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Seeing these two guys come together like on a tweet, and Bobby's backing him, and then he retracted it, and it became a mess, and then it's just evolved into where we are now. I can't read his mind, so I'm not going to pretend to have the answer or the wisdom on this. I see everybody's tweets, and they come at me, and they DM me, and they text me, and they ask me about this. And I have raised these concerns with him. Charles Eisenstein, who's one of Bobby's top, are you familiar with him?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Charles Eisenstein, like his top policy advisor, who's helped him write some great speeches and advised him on great speeches on foreign policy that Bobby's given, including the peace speech. That was an event that I helped plan back in June at St. Anselm College, where in commemoration of JFK's speech at American University in June of '63, where he talked about détente and scaling back the war machine and nukes and looking at the Russians as human beings. Charles is a bright dude. He's a sharp guy. He's a Jewish guy. He disagrees with a lot of what Bobby has said about Israel, and he has publicly published some brilliant Substack writings about it. So I have all those concerns, and I know everyone has them. And they've been brought up to him, and it's just an issue where we don't have agreement. And the way that I'm going to continue going and supporting Bobby is that he is so damn good on everything else, in my opinion. He's great. He was great on the COVID issue. He's great on Russia, Ukraine. He's great on civil liberties, medical freedom, transparency in government, bringing to light what happened to his father and his uncle, like all that stuff. We're seeing an unprecedented someone with a platform of his stature and his size actually talking truthfully about these issues. It's unbelievable. I couldn't believe what I was seeing at the outset of his campaign about all this, and still am very excited about it. But the Israel-Palestine thing, I don't know, just, one day Rabbi Shmuley showed up. I don't know where the hell he came from and how that happened or what the connection was there. All that stuff's above my pay grade, unfortunately. But I've voiced all these concerns. I've done it tactfully and respectfully. And I will say this, that, when Bobby says that he does want people around him that he doesn't agree with on everything, he does mean that. That's not bullshit. That's a real thing. There are people around him that don't agree on things, and they tell him, and he listens, and he is a thoughtful guy. But I just, the Israel thing, I don't know what's going to happen there.
Does he realize how much support he could actually pull away from Joe Biden if he had a different position on that issue?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly he's open to evolving, and when he learns things, he says, look, prove to me where I'm wrong and where I need to learn things, and if I didn't see it a certain way or I was missing something, I want to hear about it. So, certainly I'm hoping that he's going to be open to that. We still have a lot of campaign left. We got, what are we in February? So we got, another 9 months of this campaign. So certainly a lot's going to happen. But yeah, it's a bummer. I'm not even gonna lie. It is a bummer. And I wish, he had a different view on it and would, kind of stick up more for the Palestinians. And I've certainly voiced those concerns.
All right. Well, Eric, thank you for letting us know what was going down in New Hampshire. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you're welcome. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, so I have a podcast with my twin brother. It's called Jackman Radio, and we're on Spotify, Podbean, Rumble, YouTube, iTunes, and Apple under just Jackman Radio. And then if you want to support our channel, patreon.com/Jackman Radio. $5 or $10 a month. You know about that Patreon hustle, Sabby. It helps. It keeps you going. And we certainly would like to grow that more. And then I'm on Instagram. My account is Senator Jackman, and then Jackman Radio on Instagram. And then Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Jackman Radio.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Eric, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Let's do it again soon, Sabby, and keep in touch. And thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All righty. Bye.
We'll see you.
All right, guys, that was the New Hampshire primary. So again, Donald Trump has already won. They called that pretty early. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. I still can't believe Joe Biden won by write-ins, man. That is wild. Thank you for the super chat, Alex. Did you know DNA tests are illegal in Israel? I heard that from someone before. Thank you for this as well. Has Elon been on Epstein's plane? I know. I think a lot of us have that question, right? Joey says Elon bought and captured the IP rights to hemp batteries and is slow rolling the industry out. Hemp batteries replace cobalt and more from the Congo. Thank you for that, Joey. Thank you, Naz. Naz was giving me the heads up. 52% Trump, 46% Haley. That was earlier on. Thank you, Nathan. It's a bit of an odd reason to vote for someone because you think the candidate is going to win. Interesting, Nathan. Thank you, 100% Black Roke. Thank you, Sabby. Thank you, NY Varsity Sports. Does this mean write-ins can set a precedent for the national election? Because if that is how they are playing it, you should run for president. Actually, Lucy, also known as Blue Moon Red Wine, that's a part of Indie News Network. She actually was trying to get people to run as a write-in candidate against AOC. And the plan was to get enough write-ins so that she would lose because there's just so many other write-ins. Thank you for this as well. I don't agree with RFK either, but we are not a one issue nation. If RFK is not stopping people from criticizing him, I'm in. If not, I'm out. Thank you, Alex. RFK can win the election if he frees Gaza. That's what I'm saying. I really do believe that. But here we are.